Hello and welcome to another video for IPS. Today we will look at how to accurately read a metric ruler and a graduated cylinder. This is an important skill in IPS as many of our labs will rely on your ability to accurately read one of these pieces of equipment in order to achieve the expected results. So let's look at how we are going to go about doing this. Let's start with the metric ruler and the 10 milliliter grad. These two are going to be grouped together as they are going to be read using the same exact rules because their scales on them are very similar. So, step 1. We are going to line up our object with the 0 mark. Of course, this goes for the ruler mostly because as soon as you pour a liquid into the graduated cylinder, you have no choice but to start it at the 0 mark. Next, you're going to count the number of whole centimeters that the object passes, or up the whole number of milliliters the meniscus passes. Then you're going to count the number of little lines that the object or the meniscus passes. Then we're going to estimate between the little lines where the object or meniscus ends. And finally, we're going to add our unit. This is important. If you do not have your unit, you can only get half credit. A number is just a number if it does not have a unit. So you must have a unit. If you are using the ruler, our unit will be centimeters. If we are using a grad, our unit will be milliliters. So your answer should look like A.BC, where A is our number of full milliliters or centimeters that we have passed. B is our number of little lines we have passed, and C is going to be our estimated value. So, rules for estimating. If our object or our meniscus ends directly on the line, we are going to use a 0 in that last number. If our object or meniscus ends just a little over the line, we are going to use a 2 or a 3. So how do we decide the difference? If it's closer to the line, we use a 2. If it's closer to the middle, we'll often use a 3. If it is exactly halfway between the lines, you guessed it, we're going to use a 5. Then if it is just before the next line, we use a 7 or an 8. Again, 7 if it's closer to the center, and 8 if it's closer to the next line. So you can see we left out some numbers. These numbers we are never going to use. So we're never going to use 1, 4, 6, or 9 as the last number. This can be used in the first or second number, but we cannot use it in the last number of a measurement. The space between each little line is too small for us to do that accurate of an estimation. So we are going to forget about 1, 4, 6, or 9 as our last number and keep it to the ones listed above. So let's practice. First is our graduated cylinder. We want to look at how many total milliliters that we have passed. So we're assuming we're starting from the bottom and we are reading up. So we have 3 here, so this will be considered our third whole centimeter, and we have not yet made it to 4, so our first number is going to be a 3, and then we're going to put a dot. Then we count the number of little lines. So our little lines are 1, 2, 3, 4, so we have 3.4. Then we need to estimate. So we need to estimate where this mark, where this mark or this line falls between those two little lines. So does it look like it's halfway or a little over halfway? I would say it's just over halfway, so I would estimate this as a 7. Now if I just put 3.47, it'd be a good number, but I'm only going to get half credit. So I need to make sure I have my unit of milliliters. For the ruler, we're going to do the same idea. We're going to start over and read until we hit the line. So we assume we started at 0. Here's my 2, here's my 3, so my number of large lines I've passed, or full centimeters that I've passed, is 3. So I've got 3 points. Then little lines, I've passed 1, 2, 3 little lines. So this will be 3.3. Now I have to estimate. So in between here, where does that look to be? Well, to me it looks like it's exactly in the middle. So I am going to put a 5. And again, for full credit, I need to put centimeters. You'll have plenty more practice with this in class the next day. Now let's look at our 50 or 100 milliliter grads. So you can see as you read these, they're going to be very similar to what the 10 and metric ruler were. We just leave out basically one step. That's because the scale on the markings have changed. So in here, step 1, we're going to count up the number of lines that the meniscus passes. So same as before. Only difference is that we are going to count all of the lines. So in this one, we're looking at all of the lines. Then we are going to estimate between the lines where the meniscus ends. So we don't have any little lines because in step 1, we're going to count all the lines. So then we go straight to our estimate. And then, of course, we add our unit. Again, reminding you that if you do not have a unit, you get half credit. These are grads, so they're going to be milliliters. So this time, you can see we have one less number in our measurement. So A is our number of total lines that we passed. B is our estimate. So if we look at this time we're going to look at total number of lines. You can see that between the two we've gone up by 10 instead of by 1. So that's why the markings or the scale here is going to be different and why we don't have as many places past the decimal point. So if we're counting total lines, here I have 10, and I have 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and then let's say maybe 17. I don't know why it keeps doing that. So our number is going to be 17. So 17 total lines. Then I don't have any little lines to count because I counted all the lines. So now I'm going to estimate where it is. Well, it looks like it's directly on that 17 line. So I'm going to go 17.0 and then add my unit. So this would be 17.0 milliliters. So some things to remember. If you are using a 10 milliliter grad, you have 2 decimal places, just like if you are using the ruler. So little lines, estimate. If you are using the 50 or 100 milliliter grads, you only have 1 decimal place. That's because there's no little lines. We read all of them and then we estimate. Always include your unit. Remember, without it, it's only half credit. And last but not least, we never use 1, 4, 6, or 9 as our last number. They can come as the first number, the second number in a 10 or ruler, but they cannot come as the last number. They cannot be the estimate. Now, you're thinking, what if I don't estimate the same way you do? Well, your eyes are not the same as my eyes. We are not looking through the same set. So there is going to be times when my numbers don't exactly match your numbers. So since there is estimating involved, your answer should be within plus or minus 0.02 for the 10 milliliter grad and the ruler, meaning you can be 2 off of what my estimate is, either above or below, or 0.2 for the 50 mil or 100 milliliter grad. Again, that's because in the 10 and the ruler, this is my estimated spot, and in the 50 or the 100, this is my estimated spot. So you can always be 2 off of my answer.